Do you want to play a Harpy? Or a Magman? Or maybe a Terrafolk? And what if I said that you could do that without a single homebrew? In fact, you won't be changing a single mechanic. We have the underused power of reflavoring and reskinning in our grasp. So let's dive into the monsters of the multiverse races and see what else we can turn them into and possibly create things that we may not have thought of yet. Hello Acolytes! Welcome to the Cleric Corner. My name is Riker, and here we talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons, tapping into our higher powers to create worlds more unique and stories more impactful. Now the great thing about fantasy is that we can make it literally whatever we want, and we as DMs and players have the power to explain mechanics in different ways. In the same way that Tasha's Cauldron of Everything turned us to custom lineages in order to pick a base feat and then explain that to be a race, we can look at the races themselves and give their powers and abilities a fresh coat of paint. And in my opinion, might even be better than just a single feat to explain something that you want to play at the table. So let's start with the very first burb of D&D, the Aarakocra. If you choose this race, you get a talent attack, a flying speed, and the ability to cast the spell Gust of Wind. Now the book says that these creatures look like parrots or eagles, but to start out this flavor, let's look at what other birds we can reflavor it into. Flamingos, doves, hummingbirds, frigate birds, toucan, goose, duck, shoebill, and if you saw me in a one-shot with a couple other YouTubers, a pigeon. And the great thing is too, now you can choose your character to be either small or big, so have any size of bird that you want. But if that's a little too furry for you, you can choose the half-human Raptoran that you can take from previous editions. Other half-human races include the Kyrie or the Averials, which is more of the half-elf version. And speaking of past editions, you can also be a Terrafolk. Trade in your feathery wings for leathery ones. But I know that we're still on the fence of what dinosaurs had feathers and what didn't. I don't know. If you have a paleontologist in the comments section, please let me know. Another race would be the Windsice or Wind Raisers. That would be terrifying. Easily rename your talent attack as a bite attack. But speaking of terrifying, there are also other creatures or monsters in 5th edition that we can change our Aarakocra into. I'm talking about famous harpies or even sturges with a proboscis attack, or also winged thralls from Ravnica, or the vulture-like Vrock. Look at their lore and tie it into your backstory, or even look at some of the folklore in your own backyard. Some may know of the Jersey Devil, a kangaroo-like creature with the face of a horse and somehow a head of a dog, but with bat-like wings and a tail. Or a Pamela, which is part human, part moose, part eagle, that was a vengeful spirit of Native America. But let's say that you liked a lore in-game and wanted to be a homunculus for a wizard, and your journey is to find your master that went missing. And just for added flavor, you could be a flying monkey from the Wizard of Oz. Or in reality, you could really just slap a pair of wings on any animal. Be an Arelez, a dog-like creature with wings from Armenian folklore, but also know that even though you have flying speed, doesn't mean you have wings. So you could easily be an artificer with a jetpack, or just telekinesis flight from your wizard, or air from your air ganassi flying you around. Next on our docket is the Aasimar, a half-human, half-angel who is resistant to radiant and necrotic damage. They also have dark vision, a light cantrip, and a special healing pool to help your friends. Then you can pick from 3 celestial powers, including a necrotic shroud that you sprout skeletal wings in order to frighten your enemy, radiant consumption that allows you to do extra radiant damage, or radiant soul, which gives you a flying speed. But angelic creatures don't always have to look human. Take the half-bird aesthetic from the Aarakocra, give it divine blood, and you have the Asura. And proving that all dogs do go to heaven, we have the Hound Archons, who are guardians of Celestia. Next, we would have the disembodied Lumi, which is the embodiment of positive energy and light. And then we have the Gale Eladrins, or Gale? Tell me, I don't know. But they embody celestial energy as normal Eladrins embody different seasons of the year. Also amazing that you can do small and medium creatures for the Aasimar as well, giving up the option of a cherub. Put on a diaper and level up in the Enchantment Wizard, and you have a holiday Valentine special. It may also be interesting if you were from Coatl or Corinne blood, and you took on more scaly features, or make your appearance like a centaur, and have wings from a Pegasus, or a horn from a unicorn. And of course, we can't forget another small celestial, the Hollyphant, if you wanted to go that route. But it also might make sense to play an Erinyes, who are going around and punishing those who are unfaithful. Or maybe instead of the light coming from where the gods live, they come from outer space and the stars above, giving you the alien character that you wanted to play. You would be from the heavens in a different way, but also know that feathery wings is not a necessity here and can be more futuristic tech. Now, next in the book would normally be changelings, but since their originality was in the Eberron campaign setting, I will be making a separate video on that. And for other races in other settings, I will be doing the same. But of course, I'll be using the updated stat blocks of Monsters of the Multiverse. So instead, we'll be going over the Air Genasi. And just for convenience, we'll be kind of pushing all of the Genasis together. And I know it's like Genasi or Genasi. At least it's not Genocide. I'm looking at you, Indestructible. But anyways, Air Genasi are half air genies with dark vision and resistance to lightning damage. They also have the ability to literally hold their breath forever, and they have the spells Shocking Grasp, Featherfall, and Levitate. Now with these abilities, of course, you could completely ignore the lore with the genie and have just someone with a penchant for lightning or air-based magic, or you could go full on with the lightning golem from Candlekeep Mysteries. You could also reflavor the wind as telekinesis, leaning into more of a psionic-based power. It would also make an interesting alternative to the Kalashtar race, or you could just be a construct and discharge electricity. The Earth Genasi now gets dark vision and the ability to traverse across difficult terrain without any penalty. They also get the spells Blade Ward that gives you resistance to physical damage, and Pass Without a Trace, which helps your party get a little more sneaky. But I'll be looking at some other elementals that we can reflavor this into, including the Gargoyle. Of course, a flightless one, unless you take Fly later on in your levels. Or you could be a Zorn, giving Sarlacc from Tatooine a run for its money. And then you have the Galeb Dur, which looks like a stone all rolled up. Or you have your clay, stone, or crystal golems. In previous editions, you could reflavor this to be Armans, which looked like a mole people, or the Asherati, a desert mirage type humanoid, or Crusians from a similar desert environment. Just kind of reflavor your Blade Ward to be your shell. Now with Fire Genasi, we also have dark vision and resistance to fire damage, and then the spells Produce Flame, Burning Hands, and Flame Blade. Now looking at a few other fire elementals that we can reflavor this into, we look at the Azur, which is a dwarf race from the fire plane, as well as the Fire Newt, which is a newt basically made out of lava. And then we have the Magman, which is a cute caffeinated fireball, and then two races that kind of go hand in hand, the Fire Snake that eventually evolves or grows into the Salamander. But another interesting monster would be the Dullahan, which is basically a fiery headless horseman that could be on their path to finding the fractured remains of their skull. Another one that could work would be the Iron Golem, although you might need to make up the armor class somewhere else. A Blister Coil Weird, though, looks pretty easy to hit, so you can go with that. And then the last of the four, we have the Water Genasi, who has resistance to acid damage and dark vision, and the ability to breathe air and water. And then they also have the spells Acid Splash, Create or Destroy Water, or Water Walk. With all of the other water-based races in D&D 5e, you could also just be a Triton or a Sea Elf if you just like this stat block better. But it might also be fun to be a frog or other amphibious race, or really any amalgamation of an undersea creature, using Acid Splash from a squid-like head like Davy Jones. But for Genasi as well, you can also be a small race, and I think this is Wizards of the Coast, the creators of Dungeons & Dragons, their way of telling you, hey, your other half of this genie could be any other race. It could be half human or half elf, or it could be half satyr or half gnome. What would your Water Genasi kobold look like? But being so small, you could take on the form of a mephit. Or in previous editions, there are actually half human, half mephits called mephlings that you can be. Or you could just be embodiments of the elements with spirit folk, taking on the visage of one of these elements of nature. Or you could just have your lineage come from giants instead of genies, having your Fire Genasi come from fire giants, or your Water Genasi come from a storm giant or sea giant, but I guess the Air Genasi would be better for the storm giant, or your Earth Genasi from a hill giant. But even though being half genie isn't that bad, what if you were full genie? Perhaps you had someone take one of their 3 wishes to wish you freedom, and you became one without shackles, taking away your ability to grant wishes and starting at ground zero. Another reflavored lineage could be Dragonborn, at least a non-breath weapon kind, or you can just be a regular human, any race that was just blessed with elemental power from some sort of god. Up next, we look at the Bugbear, a unique type of goblinoid, who also, you guessed it, has dark vision, You'll notice that we'll get dark vision in most, if not all, of these races. They also have proficiency in stealth, they have advantage on being charmed, and they can lift twice as heavy things. They can also do extra damage on a surprise attack and reach an extra 5 feet with their weapon with their long arms. Would this be too far away to make an excellent gorilla or orangutan race? But speaking of animals, it might also make a great giant sloth, or with its other abilities, a great ambush predator like a tiger or a polar bear or a spider. Heck, just make them half humanoid. Thinking also of long-limbed monsters, including the troll or the ogre might fit well here, or add a little demon influence with the Dretch, or even Bigfoot himself, or Yeti from the colder regions. And I don't know why, but my brain just told me Slenderman, but which makes sense with their stealth and sneak attack. But you can also reflavor your arms entirely and just make it really long weapons like a halberd or a spear. Or heck, be Mr. Fantastic and make your arms really stretchy as they go out and punch your enemy. But moving on to a sub-race turned race with the Deep Gnome. And just so that you know, a Deep Gnome used to be a sub-race of a gnome, and now Wizards of the Coast is going away from that and just making everything their own race. With this race, you also have dark vision, but hey, extra long dark vision. They also have advantage on spells that you have to roll a saving throw in wisdom, intelligence, or charisma. They also have advantage on stealth checks because of a camouflage effect, and they have spells like disguise self or non-detection. So they're really good at staying off a creature's radar. This could also be explained from the perspective of any race that just trained their mind to get these abilities, possibly a trained assassin that just doesn't want to be seen coming. But if you wanted to be a Grimlock, also from the Underdark, they would have similar camouflage abilities, as does the Korrid that uses their hair as a whip-like attack, or the Geonid that literally looks like a rock. And also knowing the Duergar, or the Dark Dwarf, is also a race from the Underdark, you could use this stat block instead of the Duergar stat block if you like this one better. And if you're looking to reflavor the Duergar, I actually covered that in the player's handbook where I covered that. And you can find all of these reflavored race videos in the same playlist. But going on to the Eladrin, we also get a sub-race turned race, an elf that embodies the seasons of nature depending on which side of the bed they woke up on. They have regular elf-like abilities like sleeping 4 hours instead of 8 on a long rest, advantage against being charmed, as well as advantage on perception checks, but also depending on which seasonal state that they're in, which is determined by a die roll at the beginning of the day, gives them extra abilities. The autumn season allows you to charm creatures, while winter decides to frighten them, but you could also do extra fire damage with summer, and then spring allows you to teleport. But being so fey and nature-based, these also make great dryads or naiads, personifications of nature. It might also be fun to just be a treant, and depending on the season that you embody, you could have orange leaves or cherry blossoms or no leaves at all. Another race would be a Killoren, a reincarnated version if they suffered a very painful and wrongful death. They're there to exact revenge on whoever killed them, so if you ever wanted your Dryad Paladin, there you go. But also knowing that the Eladrin's abilities changes every day, we can also explain them very differently. Perhaps you're in a different alignment with different star constellations every single day, or it's just wild magic and this is an extension of that. This could also be tapping into animal spirits, or you could just be a Genasi that embodies all of the different elements depending on the day. You could change personalities every morning, not knowing what your previous personality did the day before, giving a little Moon Knight flavor in there. Or maybe work with your DM to make your different abilities dependent on the seasons themselves or different biomes. Being more like a chameleon where only certain abilities activate when you're in the winter or in cold places like snowy mountains. Great for your druids and your rangers, but also you can reflavor these not as your ability innate from your race, but an ability given from a god or a patron, perhaps one with a Fey background. But remember, in collaboration, both player and the DM, you both are architects of your own games. What you say goes, and I just hope that I helped you brainstorm and create new ideas to inspire you for your characters or NPCs. If you have other ideas on how to reflavor these races or have done so already, please let me know in the comments below. Now, this exploration of Monsters of the Multiverse races is a 3-part series, so if you wanted to stay up to date with those and see other reflavoring races videos that I have done, check out this playlist here. But in the meantime, go out there and spread the good word of D&D and make the world a better place, both on and off your table. See you in the next one.